How's everybody doing? You warm enough? Man, it was cool in here before you all walked in. All that hot air just kind of came. Yeah, the fire of the Spirit. Yeah, yeah. Okay, learning to lean and conquer your fear of heights. You have no idea just how much uh, challenge, struggle, work, and finally joy to try to come up with a graphic that's sort of getting after things. I have to find different pictures, take this, put out that, eliminate this. And I'm not a graphic artist per se, but I just have to kind of get there. But I like her joy in that. Does look a bit like Rebecca, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Any of you been in a breeze strong enough to be able to do that? Lee? Okay, it's something. It's something powerful. I think I experienced that over in Wales and Scotland, up in some of the hills there. It really can roll. But, I always want to come back and touch base so that we're clear about some things. Not that you're not, but we keep adding new people online and so forth. So the fundamental question of why it is you're here, because a lot of people go to different gatherings for different reasons. There's different models and functions. Some places really function like a hospital. And, oh, sorry, is Abigail still out of it? Okay. June, just let her be. Let her be. Just sit down. Let her. Let her know. When she's done baking. So June, please just sit down. Yeah, it's good. We don't have to rush what Spirit's doing. Okay. So if it gets too bad, we can just throw a bucket of water and throw our aside or something. Anyway. How many of you been to a place where it really was more of a hospital? I mean, that's helpful, right? How many of you are glad hospitals are around? Okay, yeah. And there's a lot of the walking wounded there, and it's great, and you want them to be there. There's some that really function almost like a research center, education center. Tremendous focus on knowledge, on teaching you, and when you're done, you feel like you've been, oh, we're still not there. Okay. Okay, yeah. I don't know. Why does everybody trying to get her up? Just let her be. Well, okay, just she'll roll over onto her knees when she needs to. Then we'll send Tyler over there and just one grab of the hair and he just comes right up. Guarantee it's amazing how people pop up that way. Yeah. Yeah. I've been to churches like this, and you know what? I'm very grateful for the churches that taught me so many things. A lot of great theology, a lot of good, solid biblical knowledge. That was helpful. Some are really so highly relational. It's incredibly social, and it's good. It's now it depends. It may or may not be deep, but when you show up, everybody seems like they're having a good time, and it's a celebration. Some have a real strong focus on different kinds of worship. And a lot of the worship is very intimate. It's very kind of gentle, and you just feel like you kind of come into a quiet place in the Spirit. Yeah, you all know? Okay. None of which are really us. Parts of which we do, but again, the model that God gave us years ago through a prophetic utterance by Jerry Hardis, who was just up here getting prayed for, was that we are an aircraft carrier. And we're supposed to project the power of the kingdom. And I love this. The whole graphic is actually from Northrop Grumman, 90,000 tons of diplomacy. Because wherever carrier is deployed, it shifts what's going on in the area around it. And we believe that that is part of our function here, folks, that we help to shift that. Why is that even remotely important, or why am I bringing it up? Because I was on the phone earlier this week with somebody preparing a Bible study, and it's good. I'm just glad they're doing it and getting together, but started asking me my question about end times and post-trib and pre-trib and what my opinion was on this passage of in Ezekiel, and I went, you know what? I haven't been there in years, and it's just not right now. I'm so busy trying to make sure our people know what to do now in time. I don't have enough bandwidth to worry about what's there. Hello? And that really is how we function. And so, this is supposed to be a very flexible platform because we're going to go with whatever God says. We don't have a particular structure to deal with. We show up and we worship, yeah? And then if it works, we see if there's word and go from there. But we're not confined by a certain building and timeline, and you guys are very good at generally showing up on time and generally leaving when you're supposed to. So some of you don't hit the margins quite on the beginning or the end, but anyway, And so the idea is that a carrier needs to be mobile enough to go wherever it matters and into harm's way. And so for many, you come in this place and it feels like a good place and a safe place. And the fact of it is because it's a place where you're going to get encouraged and strengthened. But it's never meant to be isolated. It's always meant to be pushing margins for the kingdom. Hello? And that can make it very uncomfortable because it's not always predictable. It is a ship of war for a time of war. And we're in it now. Ultimately to bring peace. But in the spirit, this is you. You have a mission in your assigned sphere. You're armed and dangerous, and you're in this time and in this place for a reason, folks. And so for somebody who just wants to add to some biblical knowledge or something like that, that's great. They probably can do that, but it's just not the intent. And so most of you came in, this rotation, you land, again, some hard, some easy, and it is the biggest challenge, right? We have people that will stop landing for a while, and then eventually they usually end up coming back again because the warfare dynamic is not getting answered with where they are. You get recalibrated and repaired, you get refueled and rearmed, you get briefed, launched, and you need to keep an open comm, folks. You're trying to be out there and be an island, it ain't going to work. How many have been taken out when you tried to be an island? Yeah. And all of that's in the context of hosting the presence. But one of the keys in all of this is the idea about briefing, okay? Before a pilot's going to take an F-18 or an F-15 Strike Eagle out there, they have to get briefed. They got to be clear about their mission. They got to know what kind of weapons they're carrying, and it's going to be based on what kind of the enemy is doing out there. But then they also got to know what the weather's like, right? And when you're going out. So that is kind of the context that you do every week you come in here. We try to give you what we think is a brief based on what's going down. Now, your individual assignment and your mission is going to be personal, okay? Where your assigned sphere. Abigail just got another sphere added. She's been down there before, but it's Brazil, okay? And so that is her mission out there. She's got to be fully weaponized. She's got to understand the enemy is there. She's not going down ignorant. Now, when we first started connecting with Abigail, she would go down there pretty ignorant sometimes. She would just tell you that as far as what the enemy was doing. She just kind of thought, hey, she keeps doing whatever she's going to do and did not understand it. She gets it clearly now. But you got to know the atmospheric conditions you're walking into as well. And right now, it's been mentioned a couple of times, but we're in God's 11th biblical month. And I touched on that last week, but I'll just hit a few things here. It's about transitions. 11 days to go from Mount Horeb to Kadesh Barnea. That's in Deuteronomy 1. There are 11 sons that remain once Joseph starts his incredible journey to ultimately oversee Egypt, right? Talk about a direct path. In the pit, into slavery, into Pharaoh's, into prison, and up. Any of you been on that kind of journey? Still waiting for the Pharaoh's court thing? Okay. Not all it's wrapped up to be, right? Some of you have been in Pharaoh's court. And you're glad you're here instead. Okay. The 11 disciples dealing with all the chaos and the turmoil in the shadow of the cross, not even understanding how critical that transition was, how painful it was, but how important it was, because while they were in just an absolute storm, Jesus was down kicking butt and taking names. their triggers and transitions, it is all about this messy middle. It's chaos with a cause, and it's redemptively used by God to change and to bless us. Hello? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to touch on some things. Part of my challenge is this. Once I've taught something, I feel like you probably all got it and you don't want to hear it again. So I always want to change something. Well, God has kind of been confronting me because I trained others in martial arts for years, okay? I trained for 7 years and I taught. And you know, even when we trained, coming back in as a black belt and we train under the Grand Master, he would have us do the very first basic routine you ever learned. Because when you go down and you've got it all down, but he come around and go, oh, no, Stefan, wrist this way. You know, and it's off by like 1/8 of an inch, but it makes the difference, right? Fine tuning, fine tuning, fine tuning. And Lord was bringing that up to me saying, you know, you didn't grouse about that because you knew each time it reinforced, it made you better in that. And so I've got to be a little bit better about being willing to go back over some things, in part because I feel like what we're talking about now is not a nice to know, it's a have to know. If we don't get better how to deal with the constant level of chaos and transitions that are in us and around us now, and there are different strategies for dealing with it. We'll go there. Some problematic. So again, this one story is just a capsulation in Mark 4, and just the highlights. You know, Jesus saying to the disciples, let's cross over. Of course, a ferocious storm with violent winds and waves until the boat's nearly swamped. So you're getting the picture of this chaos, and in the midst of the chaos, there is Jesus. Oh, wait, Jesus didn't snore? Who? I don't know. I'm sorry. He was exhausted. By the way, you get that he just left this huge victory on shore, feeding all these thousands of people. And he's about to walk into another victory, delivering a demoniac of 10,000 demons. Okay? But between victory and victory, there's transitions. And then we, like so many of the disciples, teacher, don't you even care that we are all about to die? I find it interesting they use this phrase, Rabboni, instead of Kyrios, Lord, Master, Teacher. You know, we sometimes shrink God down. What the heck's going on, God? And he gets up, of course, and just deals with it. Hush, be still. And then, why are you so afraid? Haven't you learned to trust yet? And so the gist of it with this thing is these. There's a simple journey of transition from one side to the other, okay? How many times do you think he's been in a boat with them and they went from A to B, A to B, A to B? Just because you're doing the same transition doesn't mean it's going to go so smoothly this time. But there's reasons, okay? We don't like the storms, but there's an upside. Because there's two storms that he has to address. One is the storm around them, and the other is a storm within them. Hello. And of all the storms you have to deal with, the tougher one's probably here. So those two have to be addressed. Now, once he's engaged, he rebukes both storms. First, the one outside, and secondly, the one in them. Why are you so afraid? Haven't you learned to trust yet? Well, what's with the freak out? You do get that the boat was being swamped and they were close to dying. Okay, just before, in case any of us sit there and go, well, you know, I wouldn't have done that. But here's what I want you to get just very quickly. That transition was chaotic, it was violent, it was dangerous. But here's the end result in their transition. His power is shown, his glory and authority are revealed, and they are changed. So I want you to grab just that little factoid right there. That God, any transition I'm in, no matter how dangerous it feels and seems and crazy and how I freak out or don't, I want it to move where your power is shown, your glory and authority is revealed, and I am changed. If you can lay hold of those three things out of any transition, you're rocking. Hello? Hello? Yeah? It's just so all of this can be true with us. Now, in this case, this is where the storm came to Jesus, okay? It came upon him. But there are other times when he will literally march into the storm. Now it came to pass, when the time had come for him to be received up, that he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. Do you think there was any question in his mind about what was going to happen? Hello? I mean, he talked about it many times, right? But he is setting his face, he set his face like flint, okay? In other words, I'm walking into that storm. You get this. This is one major storm. Now is the judgment of this world. Now is the ruler of this world will be cast out, and I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself. You see, a storm often has that effect. It can lift you up, for better or worse. How many of you saw the movie Twister? Yeah, pretty fun. My favorite scene is there when they're looking at this massive twister right there, and she goes, cow. And then a little while later, it's like, there's another cow. I think it's the same one. Meanwhile, Bessie's out there just like swimming around. And anyway, great scene, right? It can lift you up. Tremendous power. And then later on, Jesus says, now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. Save me from this storm. Save me from this chaos. Save me from this violent transition. But for this purpose I came to this hour. You have to get the transitions are important. All of you transitioned many, many, many years ago, some more than others, fewer than others, out of your mother and into the world. And it was violent and it was jolting, and you still haven't gotten over it. Of course, neither have your mothers. But it was an important transition, right? And, we've been looking at Psalm 24 for 2024. And it has this line about who may ascend into the hill of the Lord and who may stand in his holy place. And so the idea of ascend and stand is critical for this year. But, when I was talking with the Lord this morning, I said, God, it seems like it's easier for me. My favorite time of the week is Saturday morning. That's my Shabbat morning. I'm decompressed. I can sit out there in the front room. I put on some worship music. I can read the Word. I can just be with God. And it's so nice because it just feels like there's a lot of weight off. And I said, God, it seems like it's easier for me to ascend then than it is in the midst of the storm. Because what I think is happening in that is my Shabbat each week is kind of like finding the eye of the storm. Okay? But the reality is that if I'm working the storm right, I've actually been ascending all week. But finally, it's kind of free of the clutter. It's kind of the calm after Jesus says, be still. And suddenly they're like, wow, I get that moment. If you don't do a Shabbat of some kind, you got to figure out how to do that. You got to give some time to open it up, cut the crazy. So I want to touch on some other things. Last week I talked about this briefly. This is snowboard cross. Snowboarders line up. There's a single track down below. They get in these starting gates and beep, 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 and then they go and they vault out. And so they've got to grab a hold of grip 1 and grip 2, and with that they pull themselves out and they thrust forward. And this is right out of Psalm 21. The first part is like that first hand grip. For anybody who wants to get moving forward, the earth is the Lord and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein, for he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Folks, How many of you have an easy time ascending up with the Lord? Sometimes? Sometimes? How often, more often is it? Now, do you have a place you go that's helpful? A time you go that's helpful? Okay, some of you are saying that. If you don't have a place and a time, that may be one of your challenges, if that's a real challenge for you, okay? Now, what do I mean when I say ascend up? I mean that you are getting enough out of yourself that you are literally connecting with Him, and you feel like you are connected with Father, Son, and Spirit, or at least with one of them, okay? If you don't have a way, the way you do, you sit down, you park your ass somewhere, you get still long enough, and then you begin to grab hold of that first handle that says, Lord, you are the creator of heaven and earth. You made it all. It all belongs to you. It's all reverting to you. You created it, you own it, and all the rights are going to revert back to it. Everything in heaven and earth, and everyone in it, is all the fullness belongs to you. And you immediately start to lose a lot of the angst that's holding you back. Yes or no? All successful warfare is the enforcement of His covenant. That's what you're laying hold of. You were not going to ascend unless you grab hold of something that is pushing, pulling, drawing you up higher. Hello? And if you are just praying and your prayers stop at the edge of the ceiling in your room and bounce back, you're not going to get up there. Hello? Some are there, some are not. Okay. See, this is hard because I feel like I've gone over this before, so I don't want to necessarily. I get irritated when somebody does the same thing over and over. It's like, okay, I've heard this. Come on, give me something new. Hopefully, because I've incorporated, I do that. How many of you do this? I get a few nods, maybe not. You got to find something new. Okay. While beginning to practice this, yeah, you got to be finding ways, folks. This is very easy. We go to Psalm 24. Just begin to read it and apply it. It's not rocket science. Why are you making this harder sometimes than it needs to be? You don't have to get in a transcendental trance. Mind-altering drugs. Yeah, I know that was repetitive. Mind-altering drugs might help you, but they're not necessary. Well, some of you might need them just to. We confess with our mouths who and what. And folks, if you're not doing it someplace where you're doing it out loud, if you are just in your head, we confess with our mouths and we believe in our heart. Just the way it works. Sorry. In the tongue is the power of death and life. Got to loose it. Hello. Got to speak. Speak! I know, sorry. She was having such a nice snooze over there. See, we speak to actually enforce His rights. Do you understand that when I'm declaring that the world is yours and all the fullness thereof, Lord, that I'm enforcing parts of His will? Because I'm making that declaration that my words, okay, I have been made in the image of God. One of the ways is the power of words. It says that His word will not return to Him void. When you are speaking His word out, it doesn't go back void, folks. Believe it, don't believe it. But if you start believing it, it will change how you pray and change why you pray. Because you're not just there rehearsing some laundry list to Papa. Then the other part of it is the last part of Psalm 24. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle, the Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. The King of glory. Say it, King of glory. There was a level of worship in here when you were doing Hail, Hail, Lion of Judah. Boy, that's the only time I feel okay saying the word hail. No, I don't mean like Southern for hell, but I mean, I've seen things where they go, Hail Valdosta State, Hail VSU. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hail, it's going to be the king only gets that. Hail, Hail, Lion of Judah. He makes dawn into darkness and treads on the high place of the earth. The Lord of hosts. Sabaoth is His name. Big, important name this year. the Lord of hosts, all the creation, all the heavenly host in the heavens, all that which he has in the earth. Say, I'm part of the host.
I am part of the host.
See, you got to get this. Those who are with you are far greater than those who are against you. So the starting gate, 2 handles, grip 1. It all belongs to you, Lord. I belong to you. Everything else, the beginning, the end, and all up this messy middle. That immediately sets a context so you stop freaking out about the wind and the waves knocking your boat around. Hello? If they had stopped and go, wait, why are we freaking out here? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. He is the Lord of hosts. He is mighty to save. You think they could have calmed themselves down enough? Hello? The other grip 2, Lord of strength, Lord of might, Lord of victory, Lord of hosts. We grasp both to start, okay? Get yourself in a starting position. Pull up. But here's the question. You get a strong grasp out of that and a great start, but what about when there's a headwind blowing straight at you? Okay. That's the level that we're dealing with now, is that headwind. The wind and storm that's chaos, and whether you're seeing it politically like that, whether it's happening in relationships around you, whether it's just all the media and all the messages and all the crazy going on, and how that all somehow just sort of finds its way into where you start feeling like, bleh. And if you have days like that? So, the wind is blowing, chaos is turning, the storms are here. For such a time as this, say, for such a time as this, I was born for such a time as this. I mean, I realize many of us would like to have been born in a different age or time, but God just didn't want you there and then. He wanted you here. Here when AI is about to spring up and make so many changes. When the world is interconnected in a way that has never, ever been before. We have returned now to the Tower of Babel before God came down and broke it up. We are coming into one language, folks. And that tower building to heaven is in part AI. Just so you know, I'm not freaked about AI, but I'm not ignorant either. It's amazing what it can do. It's dangerous. Okay? So the storms are here, but God is not surprised. Guess what? God is in a good mood. Say, God is in a good mood. Do you know why? He knows the end. And he knows Jackie's inheritance, and Barb is, and Bill is, and Jace is. He's like, okay, they're mine. I got them. So there's more approaching. The question is simply, are you prepared for them? And the fact of the matter is most believers are not. And how you are prepared is going to determine how well you respond when it comes. Do you think the disciples, when they got in the boat, do you think they felt pretty prepared to go across the other side? Most of them had been fishing and stuff like that and in storms, okay? You think they hadn't been through rough storms before? Okay, but this one was so violent that they thought they were going to lose it. This is it, okay? You got to they had prepared in the natural, but they weren't prepared yet spiritually. They didn't know enough about how to deal with that level of violence coming at them, that level of chaos and change. And have you been a boat when it's really been moving? How many of you gotten seasick? Yeah. My dad used to tell a joke about one guy who was throwing up, over the side of the boat, and buddy comes up, taps on him, and says, weak stomach, huh? Weak heck, I'm throwing it farther than anybody else. Anyway. When the change comes, here's strategy one that many people have. They just try to run from it. No. Jesus loves me, this I know. Hello? No? People will return to a very, now that can be a very pure faith, or it can be a very immature faith. Okay? The degree to which you run away from it and you just try to dive into some sort of spiritual or physical hole, you're not getting it. That's not this model. This model goes into the storm. How many of you have your dog tag still? Yeah. Storm whispers to the warrior. You're not going to be able to deal with this, right? Some try to stand, but frankly, don't know well enough how to stand with that level of wind, and they end up looking like this. By the way, you got to think that person needs a chiropractor, right? It's like, okay. Some just like, okay, I can't knock down, drag out. Bottom line, here's what we are called to do. First of all, we are called to stand in the face of the wind. Whatever the chaos is facing you, you're not called to run away from it. Sorry, what is that from? Run away, run away. That's Monty Python, the Holy Grail. Some of you are strange enough to know that movie well. John's nodding back there. Rebecca, yeah, Tyler. Okay, we'll pray for you all and me. And me. Sorry, there's just a thing where they go charging up, and then these stones or something, they go, run away, run away. You know, that's a lot. We're called to stand, but there's more to it than that. Then we're called to lean into it. And the leaning then is a next step. Stand, lean, and then you got to do this Rebecca move. You got to have the wings out. Oh, we got Abigail moving. Okay, see? I told you it'd be Tyler. I was really looking forward to pulling by the hair, though, Tyler. You're being a little too gentle. It's like... Spirit's getting ready for Brazil. That's cool. Excellent. Say wings out. And then finally, you're called to this, to soar. Stand, lean, wings out, and soar. 4 things. Can you do those? I'm not seeing much confidence here. Okay, let me just point out some things, because last week I was talking about eagles. Eagles use storms' winds to lift themselves higher than most birds. How do they do that? Well, they can sense when a storm is approaching long before it breaks. Let's just connect the dots on each of these spiritually. You have to get, when you are connected in with the Spirit, that the Spirit will give you a heads up before things break open. Hello. Hello. You're not sure why. If you're a good, big DC Comics fan, you say your spidey sense is tingling. That's Marvel? Oh, sorry. Oh, I said a dirty word. Okay. You can't do that. Marvel and DC. I know. Levi's like, I try and I try and I try to educate him. Okay, Marvel. Eagles can sense when a storm is approaching. They're not even quite sure why and how. They believe it's everything from the inner ear and sensing the pressure to it is their bone structure. Their bones are incredibly light, okay? The entire bone structure of an eagle weighs like half a pound. It's just for all those bones, it's really rather phenomenal. But they can sense it. They fly to a high spot and wait for the winds once they know it's coming. Some of you are connecting the dots. When you sense there's a storm coming, you need to automatically get to the heights, folks. You need to start making that climb up. You need to get to better elevation. They do that because they'll wait, because when the storm hits, they just simply set their wings so the wind picks them up and lifts them above the storm. Do you get that in the Spirit, all of these things you can do? You're kind of like, okay, maybe. It's okay. But see, it starts by going, this can happen for me. I can literally have. You have to understand, being lifted up is part of his agenda. Why? Because you've been seated in the heights with Christ Jesus, co-seated with him. Hello? Yes? How many of you know that verse? How many of you believe it? How many of you hang out there? How often? Okay? A lot of times you're down here and you need to get up there, folks. They use the storm's wind to lift them even higher, and it gives them an opportunity, listen to this, to glide and rest. You see, it's not all work to get up there. When I get up there in the morning, okay, and it's for me, I have a discipline with how I walk through this to reconnect with Father, Son, and Spirit, so that I am literally like just, it's not about me, it's about them, and I get recalibrated to that fact. And when that happens, I'm tapped into them, and suddenly my perspective is about from what they see, not from what I'm dealing with. Hello? Suddenly that little crap is just little. They hold the wings out to catch the updrafts. They're currents of rising warm air, and it literally keeps them aloft. How many of you seen an eagle's circle? Yeah. They have large, powerful chest muscles and allow them to flap the wings vigorously and generate lift if they need to ascend to higher altitudes. So let me just have you watch this for a little bit. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. So I want you to notice something. I want you to notice just the stress level on this poor bird. Can you not see it? Can't you see the striving? I mean, oh my goodness, poor bird. It's a good thing he's an eagle. Can't you see the fear? Oh, he's just permeating him. And the sweat dripping off his brow. He's just... So, read that verse with me. Those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Run and not grow weary, walk and not grow faint. So here's a question. What keeps you earthbound? Any of you know who this is? This is Terrence from Angry Birds. I only know that because the wiki site that I was put in, I needed a picture of a big fat bird, and this is what I got. So, okay, two things that basically keep us earthbound is this: gravity and our wing set. Psalm 24 says, who can ascend? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, right? So we're connecting some dots. The gravity, therefore, is connected to that. What's in your hands and what weighs down your heart. See, an eagle is amazing and remarkably strong, but it cannot soar in the heights when it's grabbing onto a dead rabbit. Just don't work. Oh, but I'm going to be hungry later. I gotta, but I'm trying to soar. Hello? I mean, so the question is, what do you try to carry? That will really keep you earthbound, the degree to which you're trying to overcarry. You got to find a way to unload it. Situations and people and crises. Psalm 24 says, all the earth is the Lord's. So whatever it is, can I hand it over somewhere? Now, Tim and I were talking about it, and, one of the phrases that's out there is, people say, I just got to let it go and let God. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like that phrase because it just sort of like, it's just floating around, whatever that is, whatever that person. I let it go. It's like, okay, what's happening? How about instead this? Cast all your cares. I got a handoff. Okay, God, let me give this to you. Let me give you this stress. Let me give you this relationship. Let me give you my checkbook. Let me give you my doctor's report. Let me give you the world political scene. Let me give you, right? Because soaring isn't going to work being weighted down by that. Gravity is simply against you. Hello? That's pretty, right? The other, that's what you hold in your hands. The other is a pure heart, right? Which brings us to this question, what's weighing you down within? And I mean by that specifically usually sin and condemnation. It's just amazing how many people can't ascend because they feel like they're just crap in God's eyes, or they've done so much bad, or they're covered with it so badly that they can't get there. Nobody here has ever had that problem, have you? Hello? I mean, my problem early in the years was that I felt like I had to have all of it together before I really could approach God. Okay? I really needed to clean up my act beforehand. And God's like, no, come here. Let's get that cleaned up together. Yeah, he's wearing a hazmat suit to do that, but it's okay. The other weighing down often is past trauma and scorched earth. The past trauma are the wounds and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes the scorched earth is where, oh, but God, I've tried to soar before and this didn't happen and that went sideways and I tried to trust you and you know what? The storm kept coming and swamped the boat and 3 people were drowned. Hello? You guys aren't all that responsive tonight, so I'm just going to be checking. Is it just warm? Am I just talking too much? Are you getting it in? Okay. Okay. Two words of encouragement that are directly connected to this month, because in Zechariah 1:8 and following, he has a series of night visions that the Lord is speaking things, and there's some nuggets out of that in this time of dealing with the chaos and with those things that are holding you down, the weight of gravity that makes you feel like an angry bird with really little wings. You're like, how am I going to soar with ease? Zechariah 2, he says, I will be a wall of fire around her, and I will be the glory within. You have to, folks, Lord, you're the wall of fire around me. I roll it all over to you. You're my protection. You are the glory within. And then Zechariah 3, where he says, take away the filthy garments from Joshua the high priest. See, I have removed your iniquity from you. You got to go back and read that. Joshua is in front of the entire heavenly council, and there is the enemy accusing him, going, look at this schmuck. He's filthy. He's disgusting. And the Lord rebukes him. Shut up. Speaks to that storm. You got to let the Lord speak to the enemy sometimes. And if you're not hearing him do that, then you do it. Back off, dirtbag. I do not belong to you. I am not under your authority. The blood of Yeshua HaMashiach stands between me and you. And it's between me and any and all of these foul things. You know, folks, part of what I do, I go through a time of repentance and all, and then I ask for forgiveness. And I go through very specific, okay? Just because I want it all. I want it cleaned out. I don't go to the dentist and say, okay, do only the front teeth and on this side when they're cleaning. I want the whole thing. And you know what? That's kind of painful, right? Because they go in there with the tools and I can't do that sound, but I want the same thing. I want to get it all done. But when it's all done and I ask for forgiveness and I receive forgiveness and I thank him for removing my iniquity as far as the east is from the west, I ask that will you please pour the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach fresh over in and through me. And Holy Spirit, now will you please take it. And we walk through all the places and all the things that he's taking it through. In my thoughts, my mind, my imagination, my heart, my passions, my desires, my spirit breath, all of my physical being. And I mean literally, I have him go into my brain cells and we just walk it through. And when all that's done, I say, I now declare that the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, the Holy One of God, now stands between me and any and all of these foul things. You have no legal right to remain. That is really key, folks. You're going to bind something out and kick it out. It's got to not have a legal right. The reason it doesn't, I have repented, I have received forgiveness, and the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach now stands between me. Some of you just need to add that into your prayer. You got to get that very, very clear. Because the enemy is going to go, we're not leaving. Yes, you are. You have nothing left to hold on to here. Now you can bind them and loose them from you and send them away. Make some sense? Okay. Gravity is one thing. The other is wind I call it wing set. That's just kind of my old phrase. There's two areas to that with the wings, and has to do with the surface area that's available and what's called the angle of attack. Part of it, did you know that when they talk about the eagles, they have a joint here and a joint here. It is like they have the elbows and they have wrists, okay, the equivalent of. They're all wings. But how they use that. But part of that is unfolding the wings and the elbows and then extending, okay, extending, and then extending. Levi just lost it. He's tired. Yeah. That happens. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Just throw some water on him. I love that. Extending. That's like when I was a kid, I had a problem saying aluminum and synonym. I'd run another one in there. I couldn't quite figure it out. So I don't have that problem now. I can say aluminum, no problem. Okay. But it's just, can you see the difference in the surface area and the movement from when they're tucked in here and close by and when they're extended? And what's an amazing then is the lift that they can get explosively from that, from putting out that surface area. I love this that he's coming out of wet. You know, the eagle's one of the few birds that will fly during the rain. Most birds can't because their feathers, they get too heavy too quickly. Eagles can do that. It's one of the reasons why they can navigate a storm. That's also why they actually can swim and they dive into the water. So they're getting out and they're controlling that in order to get up. Remember the pulling on something? Remember the two hand pulls? Okay? You're increasing your surface area. But I like this one even better. See, because sometimes an eagle will take a flap, but a lot of it is the glide. And the extension out there of those little ailerons out in the there, they help to actually create a better lift for him so he can glide and fly around. So here's a question. How do you increase your surface lift? Okay, that's a metaphor, an analogy, right? How does that apply to you? In the plane, you do this by extending flaps, right? You've all taken off in an airplane, and beforehand you hear this, and the flaps go down, right? Things come off the back of the wing, and they curve down. It's increasing the surface area there. It's changing. I'll get to this in a minute, but it's changing the angle of attack. And what it does is it increases the lift factor. So that's true. Birds do it. Planes do it. What about in the spirit? Well, I just gave you one. Those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagle. How do you wait for the Lord? How do you wait? Yeah, but see, but there's passive waiting and there's active waiting. Here's me waiting. Oh, so now you're going to clarify it. Well, you just wait. Oh, well, no, it's not that kind of waiting. How about, ever been with somebody who, ever been with someone whose foot bounces the whole time? I had a boss. Sit down and talk with him. You're not getting anywhere faster that way. Anyway. Now, I'm serious, folks. You can't rightly wait on the Lord without, in a sense, kind of bringing your wings out, because you have some anticipation of his coming. Some of you are going to have to get somewhere quiet and just in your own room start to do this. You're going to have to physically do that, okay? Just to try to get the idea, Lord, I'm extending myself out. I want to catch what you're doing. Those who wait on you, renewing their strength and mounting up like wings with an eagle. How about this? You sang this basically. This is from from David. Why are you cast down, O my soul, and why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation. You can't say this psalm out loud without feeling this, folks. Oh, come on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me. Lift up your voice. You've got a lion inside of your... I started too high, huh? Okay, inside of your lungs. Get up and praise. See, this is David saying, look, I got to mount up here. I got to mount up like an eagle. I get my wings. You didn't realize, right, eagles are pretty good size, but when they're all compact in there, they're like this. You know, they go 6 foot to 8 foot wingspan. Went on a cruise to Alaska, and they had a board there, and they said, okay, well, here's this wingspan of an eagle. You know, it's just like, wow. And some of them 8 feet. And when those feathers go out, right, increasing the surface area. How big is your wingspan? I don't know. Because this is how I pray. And you're such a good God, and I really thank you. Am I being... Do you not know people that... Come on. Oh, God, if it's your will, please do this. Oh, God, I know, I just... It's like, come on. Who are you? Who are you? Come on, who are you? No, I'm sick. Come on, folks. It's this identity issue. And the identity, an eagle's not sitting there going, well, I don't know. Does this kind of work? And maybe, and not getting me the lift I need. All creation is waiting for the revelation of the sons and daughters of God. That's you. Those trees are out there busting inside for what David's going to reveal, okay? They're like, come on. Just stretch it out. Wow, look what I can do. And you know, how else do you do it? You do it by recognizing that when the storm hits and the crap hits the fan, that it ain't over. Paul says, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. You get, in the midst of this was about the thorn in the flesh, asking God 3 times, and it wasn't casual, I can guarantee you. Those were intercession sessions that were intense and powerful, crying out to God like David did when his first son with Bathsheba, was going to die, okay? And he said, no, my grace is sufficient for you. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight. Say, I delight. What's the next line? Oh, let me see how many of you delight in your weakness. Come on, show of hands. Nobody? I'm sorry, but Word of God or not? See, you have to get, there is a way in which, in the midst of the garbage, in the midst of the hurt, that I can extend the surface of my wings by understanding that crazy storm and my weakness are going to actually move for His glory. And if they move for His glory, guess what? They move for mine. I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. And I'm having such a great time. Cat got run over, dog died, threw up 5 times. Bank foreclosed on this, got this. I mean, I know that's being silly, but you have to get, we have no clue about what this, because he says this, for when I am weak, then I am strong. Say, when I am weak, then I'm strong. Folks, there's times in some situation you're dealing with and the chaos is coming and you're just going to have to do this. When I am weak, then I'm strong. And as soon as you do that and you visualize that you are putting out spiritual wings to catch the breeze up, it's going to change your perspective. Okay, I can tell you're about crispy, right? So let me just get through the rest of it. Angle of attack. What that is basically, can you see this diagram? That's called the angle of attack. Here's the simplest language. The angle of attack is simply described as the difference between where a wing is pointing, you see how it's pointing up, and where it's going. It's going forward, okay? And the wind is coming there. That's just all it is. And you know what? When you're in a plane, they have an angle of attack. And you know what? If they try to do an angle of attack this way, what's going to happen? Yeah. But if they do an angle of attack that's too low, they're not going to take off. They got to find the right angle to adjust with the flaps, okay, in order to get the right ascent. And you're like, okay, what the heck does this have to do with me? So let me just go here. How do you change your AOA, your angle of attack? By extending? Extending. That's part of it. Just, I'm losing you now. Okay, I lost Levi long ago. How about this? Number one, choose to let that wind drive you up and in rather than over and about. You see, you change the angle of attack. I think it's interesting. It's called angle of attack. It's not called angle of passivity. Okay. You change the pitch, how your wings are set in order to catch it. And you have to make this choice. When it's coming at, folks, this is how it's working. Just so I may be losing some of you because you're tired. I have all this week had times when something comes up and I can feel the stress start to leverage right here. And have you had that? Okay. When that is happening, I'm immediately going, nope. I'm going to let that push me up. I'm literally just feeling that instead of it penetrating in here, instead of it grabbing hold of me, it is going to lift me up. Does that make sense to some of you? Okay, others you're like, I don't know what he's talking about. That's okay. But we have got to become masters at everything that wants to try to come against us, letting it push us up. A wise friend, when I was in seminary, said, everything in life will drive you either into the heart of Jesus or away from the heart of Jesus. It's the same thing. I can let that drive me up into him, or I can let it drive me away. It's going to do one or the other. 2, you have to turn into the wind, folks. That means you got to turn into that chaotic thing. You got to turn into that thing that's causing you grief and freaking you out. Do not try to turn away. Turn in and let it be a force that pushes you up. Is that possible? It really is. It's just a question of how you set your wings, okay? You have to understand that same breath, that same wind, that same storm can be coming at an eagle, and he can do this and try to filter it through and just survive it. In fact, a lot of times they will. They don't always fly in storms because they go up largely so they can see, so they can hunt. Well, they use their eyesight for it. When you got a lot of storm clouds and stuff, it's hard to see. So they don't always do that. Sometimes they just cuddle in next to a log kind of thing and wait it out. Unfortunately, that's most of us. Okay, I'll just wait here. I'm trying to tell you, folks, we have got to learn to use the chaos to lift. Jesus used the chaos of the cross to lift. If I be lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. You get home. Okay. And you got to have this. You got to expect to be lifted up. Some of you, if you would just try it when you go home, or just even tonight, when you're feeling some pressure, you're just go, no, Lord, I'm going to let it push me up. You will have a physiological response. I do. And I'm determined that's got to become regular, because the level of chaos and change that's going on is just nuts. It was projected that the level of total human learning by 2025 would be doubling once every, I think it's 13 hours. Doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean just information, human knowledge. So much out there. Okay, how do you possibly navigate that? And try to figure out wisdom from all that knowledge. You have to. The change that's coming. And then when you get lifted up, folks, we got to look and see what it shows us. Okay, the reason for getting lifted up is not just to have a googly moment. Oh, that feels better. Okay, God, what do I need to see from the higher altitude? When I get my time in the morning, and you know what, folks, I can feel it when I'm there, because I'm in awe of him. I'm in awe of him. It usually hits when I'm recounting things that have to do with the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, the heavenly council and all that's going on with there. Worthy is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Worthy is he who returns again soon on a white horse, his robe dripped in blood. The Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. And it's just like somehow in the midst of that, so often I'm just kind of like suddenly there. Okay, I am in a different place in my heart, and it feels lighter. I have to look what he's showing us. And then you got to declare as he directs. That's where I go to do warfare for you. Because I need to war from there rather than down here. Okay? Some people are afraid or a fear of heights. Many believers have that fear. They fear if I get too close to God, if I get too close up there in all that atmosphere, not going to be good. And so we go from this strange place of having no real fear of God to where we're terrified by the presence. And that's where most of believers function. There's not really operating in a righteous fear of God, in a reverence, okay, because it's more of a religion and a kind of a doing thing. But they're terrified about the presence. A lot of people might want to try to walk in here and we turn around and walk right back out because this presence shows up here. And if you're not used to it, it can be frightening. Don't. We come before the holy God. He's stunning, he's glorious, he's mysterious, he's powerful. We come boldly, though, because we're blood-bought sons and daughters. Stand. Paul talks about having done all to stand. Lean. Do not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. Wings out. Lord, I place my hope afresh in you. Why are you downcast, O my soul? Soar. You have been seated with Christ in the heavenlies. It's not, this is just not, not an option, folks. We have got to get better, and we can't do this once a day. We got to find ways to hit it during the day. You got to find ways to get it through the day. Every time that stress hits, you got to let it lift you. How many of you experience pressure here sometimes? Okay, you know what I'm talking about then. Some of you might get it there, but when it's there, you just okay, you got to just see it. See it like wind hitting a sail. Okay, whoop, here we go. Whoop, here we go. I'm going up. I'm not going to get bogged down by that. I'm going to step into it. This is the Passion Translation of what I gave you earlier from Jesus, the words of Jesus. From this moment on, everything in this world is about to change, for the ruler of this dark world will be overturned. That is right now, folks. I mean, it was time when Jesus said it, but I'm just telling you, everything in this world is about to change. The ruler of this dark world will be overthrown. I will do this when I am lifted up off the ground and when I draw hearts of people to gather them to me. This is part of an article I was reading about eagles flying. Interesting. As a result of this pattern, the eagle enters space when a storm occurs. It cannot usually reach there in good weather. You need to get that, folks. There's times in the midst of it, you will not ascend any higher than when there's some big firestorm coming down on you. Okay, a lot of you have known that in the midst of the desperation, when it's all sideways and you had nothing else to hang on to. And so that gravity wasn't working anymore because you just couldn't hang on to it. And you were just immersed in the blood. And so it's like, okay, and so you get light in that way. Gravity doesn't have a hold on you. And you get up there. This act of boldness gives the eagle a broader view of its surroundings. When the eagle is above the storm without any rough winds, its flights become smooth with less effort. So again, pay attention. Notice, please, the stress level on that poor guy. All the striving, oh my, so hard. The fear, the sweat. Would you like to be able to do that? Say, I can do that. See, you have to be in the right place and posture. Deal with the gravity issues. Deal with the set of your wing, the surface area, the angle of attack. But then let it, when you get up there, have some joy in it. But I need to end it with this. There is joy in the flight. Say, there's joy in the flight.
There's joy in the flight.
Okay. But this ain't no joyride. You have to get that. There's joy in the ride, but it ain't no joyride because the war is on and you are on assignment. Father, I thank you for the eagle and what we learned from him. I thank you, Lord, that in the spirit here, these folks are armed and dangerous. You have given them everything they need to soar like an eagle. And Lord, all that chaos, all that crazy, all that storm that's coming their way, I just declare in advance they will leverage that and it will lift them higher to you. And they will see from the heavenly realm and they will speak from that place because we need them to do that, just like Jesus spoke to the storm and spoke to the storm in the disciples. Everybody here has something that's coming on them, Lord, so we just say, you're going to cause all of it to work together for good. That storm crazy is going to actually get them closer to you so they then know how to speak and they can soar. Thanks, Father. I love nature. I love what you do. And Lord, I'm going to love whatever gets brought in to raise us all up higher. In the name of Jesus. Amen.